streams that filter through this land of ours and fill a sportsman's dreams. Enjoy what nature holds for us, her bounty never ends. Getting back to basics with the practical sportsman. It's always an adventure, no matter where we go. From a favorite hunting spot to the hottest fishing hole. Outdoor life we all can share with family and friends. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman.
Hi there, come on in. I've done a lot of fishing stories over the years. I've enjoyed them all, but one stands out to me as explaining best what fishing is all about. The story I did on opening day of trout season on an Upper Peninsula stream, why one angler loves this activity so much. The month of June is a great time for trout fishing in Michigan, so stay tuned. It's Thursday night, June 7th, 2001. I'm Fred Trost, and it's time to fish for trout on The Practical Sportsman. Holy cow. I didn't know I was going with Eddie Bauer.
Jeez, not bad, eh?
Huh?
Of course, it's hard getting the boots on, but I think we can get it here pretty soon.
Boy, these aren't, these look like, sort of like bowling shoes, huh?
Yeah, that's what these are, Fred. These are for bowling on the Escanaba River. I use a felt soled shoe for out here because...
The felt sole?
Yeah, it's a rock bottom river, and in the summertime you get kind of slippery.
Huh. That's the latest.
Yeah. Works out pretty good.
So is this river the family cabin for many years, or?
Yeah, this has been here for a little over 40 years. My grandfather, my father built this back in the early 1960s. This used to be an old, actually, hay farm back in the turn of the century, and my grandfather got the property from some friends, basically got it for free with the stipulation that he plant trees on it. My grandfather was quite an ardent conservationist. And so he and my grandmother, my father, planted about 4,000 red pine trees out here back in the late 50s and early 60s.
Are they still standing?
Yeah, we saw those on the way in. So, but this spot is also known as the Orchard, and it's been written up in various trout journals and trout magazines for fishing. There's several good holes through here. It's great for brown trout. Occasionally you get a brookie and a rainbow. So it's a neat spot. Yeah, this is actually, my grandfather died back in 1975, but this was one of his last fishing vests. He was an avid trout fisherman, fished on the Escanaba River for years, loved it. He was a Methodist minister up here, and when he wasn't preaching, he loved to be on the river.
Is that a little small for you, or is that just...
It is a little bit small, yes. He was a little bit smaller than me, but in tribute and honor to him, I like to wear his vest, and I hope that it brings me some good luck. Although I'm sure I'll never be the fisherman that he was. He could go out here and catch a 25-inch brown in no time at all, and the best I've done so far is about a 15-inch brown. But keep trying, and one of these years I'm sure it'll happen. So
what about the flies you use?
Actually, I tie my own flies. I use wet flies for the most part. It's fast water out here, so I like to I weight some. This is called a woolly bugger. It's a fly that I've had some good success with this past year.
And what does that imitate?
Beats me. It imitates something that trout want to eat. I don't know, I've never seen a bug like this in the wilderness, but it's got a little bit of gold ribbon on there, or metal ribbon, that shoots off some light, I'm sure, and it's got a nice long tail on it, so they find it enticing. This imitates a mayfly.
That looks like a mayfly.
Yeah, you see them all over buildings in the summertime when the mayflies hatch. And then we also have a Royal Coachman here.
What would that be, like a little dace or minnow?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're easy.
Yeah. And then we also have the old squirrel tail here. This is one that my grandfather, I think one of the first flies that he taught me to tie. He also tied his own trout flies, although I guess once in a while he was known to put a worm on the end if the fish were not actually biting that day, to try and entice them a little bit more. So,
and then what do you have over here in this box?
In this box I've got an assortment of different types of flies. This is kind of a professor derivative, and a lot of them are kind of hooked together here, but this is kind of what...
Now, you tied all of those?
Yeah. It's a nice little winter pastime. This is Cahill here. That's a good way to spend the winter months when you can't get on the trout streams. My daughter ties them now as well. She's 7 years old, and so she's created some of her own impressions, and she'll be out here later on today trying some out herself. So
great.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat. It's kind of nice and rewarding to be able to catch something on something you've tied yourself, you know, rather than on a store-bought fly or lure or whatever. I use only flies. I don't use spinners out here. As my grandfather said, the people who fished with lures were called hardware fishermen. So as far as he was concerned, they weren't the purists that some of the trout lovers like himself were in terms of fishing for trout. Who thought that a good, respectable trout would not take a lure, it would take a fly only. So this is one of the prettiest spots in the river. I won't give the exact location because I don't want to be overrun by people, but you know, we're just below Boney Falls Dam. This is a waterfall I cropped up a few years back. It's actually water that follows along the bedrock and comes out here along the river. But it's a great place to cool off in the summer. In the summertime, you can kind of climb up on the falls. In the middle there, you can climb right behind the waterfalls and have the water cascade over you. So it's a great way to spend a hot day to come up here and cool off. So we're going to go down here and fish. There's kind of a channel that goes along the river there. We'll walk that downstream to the camp, and hopefully we'll catch some fish.
Cool.
And actually, I don't know if you want to do a tribute to John Volker today, or Robert Traver.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to read from Trout Madness, Robert Traver. His real name was John Volker. But anyway, John wrote, "I fish mainly because I love the environs where trout are found, the woods, and further because I happen to dislike the environs where crowds of men are found. Large cities, but if, heaven forbid, there were no trout and men were everywhere few, I would still doubtless prowl the woods and streams because it is there and only there that I really feel at home. I fish because I love to. I love the environs where trout are found, which are invariably beautiful, and hate the environ where crowds of people are found, which are invariably ugly. Because of all the television commercials, cocktail parties, and assorted social posturing I thus escape, because in a world where most men seem to spend their lives doing things they hate, my fishing is at once an endless source of delight and an act of small rebellion. Because trout do not lie or cheat and cannot be bribed or impressed with power, but respond only to quietude and humility and endless patience. Because I suspect that men are going along this way for the last time, and I for one don't want to waste a trip. Because mercifully there are no telephones on trout streams. Because only in the woods can I find solitude without loneliness. Because bourbon out of an old tin cup always tastes better out there. Because maybe one day I will catch a mermaid. And finally, not because I regard fishing as being so terribly important, but because I suspect that so many of the other concerns of men are equally unimportant and not nearly so much fun. Amen." And John Volker, who wrote Anatomy of a Murder and wrote Trout Madness, actually used to fish this area of the river here, so I think it's a fitting tribute on opening day here to read those words from Trout Madness. Words that have been repeated around the world because really trout fishing I think is a special, unique form of fishing. And where else but out here can you find such beautiful solitude and solitude without loneliness as John Volker writes about. So we're going to give it a shot today. We'll see what happens and should have some fun.
You know, you said your grandfather was a Methodist preacher.
Yes.
And your father was a preacher.
Yes, my dad's a Methodist minister as well.
And I think you are too.
Well, I like to preach about the outdoors. I think the outdoors are a great place to be, especially up here in the Upper Peninsula. I mean, you go downstate, and right now there'd be wall-to-wall people standing on the trout streams. Up here, it's me and you, and you're buddies. So it's a great place to spend today, the opening day of trout season 2000.
And as you said, as you finished John Volker's quote, your final word was, Mr. Preacher?
Amen. It's the place to be. Kind of like the movie Aurora runs through it. Very beautiful stretch of river here. I can identify with that movie because obviously his father was a preacher there in Idaho. Taught him how to fly fish, and my grandfather got me my first fly rod when I was about 5 years old. I still have it. That's a fly rod that my daughter's using right now. So it's a great sport to pass on to generations. And as Robert Travers said, the environments in which trout hang out are invariably beautiful. I think you can agree with this stretch of river right here that it truly is a beautiful spot. Small one, I think, but it's a trout nonetheless. Plantings, I would imagine.
Brown?
Yeah, brown. Huh? Yeah. Beautiful animal.
Now, are you a catch and releaser?
If they're below about 15 inches, yes. I generally release most of what I catch. We had a big die-off a couple years ago. It was a very dry summer. Where I'm standing right now, the water is probably ankle deep. So a lot of the bigger trout died off. They planted a lot last year, and hopefully if it's not too dry of a summer, we'll expect to see better trout size over the next few years. But since it is a rock bottom river, you get those days of 90 degrees, the water warms up quite a bit and makes it kind of intolerable for trout, which like the cold water. So far this year, I think we're off to a good start weather-wise, so hopefully we'll keep up that way.
Fishing is fun for a lot of reasons. Everybody has their own techniques they like to use, places they like to fish, and what they like to go after. But we have to keep in mind nowadays that a danger lurks out there for every angler, and that danger can be fatal. So let's take a couple minutes here and talk about protecting yourself against something that's pretty darn serious nowadays. There's nothing like seeing the sun rise over the water. Sun up is a happy sight because the sun is friendly. It's warm. It generally means the day will be calm, and we like that. We can feel safe about heading out into deeper water to fish for the big ones. But just because the water is calm doesn't mean that the trip will be safe. 30 years ago, nobody had an inkling that the sun could be a problem. We knew we could get sunburn from the sun in the sky, and on the water we got a double whammy. The sun's reflection off the water doubled the sun's intensity. Today, the bright sun is a hazard. What about sunblock? I haven't seen you put any on.
It doesn't really bother me too much.
But you've had a friend who died from skin cancer.
Yeah, I did have a friend that died from skin cancer. I guess I don't burn easy, you know, and I don't get real dark. My boy did this year. We were on vacation 2 years ago, and we were using a sunblock 45, but we were in and out of the pool all day. When we went to leave for vacation, that night we were getting ready, and he complained about burns on his back. We put salve on him. The next morning, we had to take him to the hospital at St. Martin's, and they kept him for 3 days. My wife had to stay 3 days with him. He had second and third degree burns on 60 to 70% of his body from one afternoon in the sun.
One afternoon?
One afternoon down there.
What was the deal?
Just in and out of the pool, the reflections in the water, and you know your sunlight is so direct there that it burned him that bad in one day.
How often did he put the sunblock on, that 45?
We put it on him 2 or 3 times that afternoon, but it's supposed to be waterproof. I haven't seen any waterproof sunblock yet, or sweat-proof.
Wow. He's okay now.
He's okay fine. He has to wear a t-shirt now all the time. Can't go without a shirt. But he's doing good. He likes to sleep, as if you remember.
Oh, that was Chad.
That was Chad.
That was Chad.
Yeah.
He could sleep in any position.
Any position.
Chad did get a little sleep on this trip for lake trout, which is something that I've done more than once. And like me, Chad could get up when we called him to grab the rod.
Yeah, he might be bigger than I thought he was.
Yeah.
Let him pull you in, Chad.
Yeah, Chad, hang on.
Little did I know that Chad was more concerned about danger from the sun than having that lake trout pull him overboard.
Ah!
Being high risk for skin cancer doesn't have to ruin your outdoor fun. You just have to protect yourself. Captain Dave Kimar provides some of the fun on this trip.
So you lift your rod up gently, he'll come with you. And reel on the drop. And do it again. And if you want a real fight, want me to bump him with the net? That works quite well. He goes, woo.
You never bumped one with the net, have you?
Oh, yes, I have. Usually not on purpose either.
Now that was quite a reach. I was
Bring him in
gonna be impressed with that.
Bring him in just a little bit here.
There we go.
We got him.
There we go.
All right. Good job, son.
Boy, look how dark he is.
That one's a little different. He's more brown than the other one.
he is.
The other one's got more black in him.
That's a nice one, Chad. Way to go. But he wasn't sleeping in the sun on that day?
No, he was swimming. He's part fish. We're going to put fins on him.
Huh. So you concluded that it was the fact that the sunblock was coming off?
Either it was ineffective or coming off, you know, from the pool.
What kind of sunblock was it? Women as well.
I don't remember, to be honest, what the name was.
It's a little bottle?
A big bottle you buy at Walmart for $7 or $8.
So you bought it because of the price?
No, it was a sunblock 45.
Oh.
In large quantity. You're going on vacation. So, just didn't work.
Huh. A lesson.
A lesson to learn.
I'm not sure what it is. Just don't go in the water and...
Use it regular.
Having been burned severely, Chad is higher risk for skin cancer than people who haven't been burned. Sunblock, long sleeves, a hat, they're more important to Chad now than if he had never been sunburned. He also makes sure he sleeps in the shade as his dad catches a lake trout bigger than his, which means their bet on the biggest fish put Chad's allowance on the line.
Well, thank you very much.
That's a great one.
Nice trout. That's what we're out here for today. Now, I think I did beat my son on this one, right? I get my allowance back?
I'll tell you what, this was so exciting that if you look right over here, you can feel the excitement. It's just the tension in the air is...
Look what you missed.
What?
I get my allowance back.
Oh, man.
In the cooler. You missed the whole thing, Chad.
We had to stop the boat.
Yeah. You weren't sleeping, were you?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't ever fall asleep in the sun, because when that sun rises over the horizon when you're on the water, the sun is direct, hot, and intense with the ultraviolet rays that have a good chance of causing skin cancer later in life. Now, having a tan used to be cool, but there's nothing cool about skin cancer. I have a warm nose. I think I could lead some reindeer on a sleigh without any problem. Or maybe I could lead the W.C. Fields parade. I may have made jokes about a sunburned nose, but really, it's no laughing matter. The more you're burned, especially as a youngster, the greater your chance of developing skin cancer later in life. Fishermen pick up the sun off the water as well as from the sky. A double dose of cancer-causing ultraviolet rays. Protect yourself from the sun and lengthen your years outdoors.
So what kind of knot you tying there, Fred?
I just used a clinch knot. A cheap, cheesy, so cheesy. Look what happened to it. I just pulled it to tighten it up. See, that's the trouble with clinch knots. They can sometimes slip if you don't cinch them down right. So I'm going to start over. I'm going to do the double loop clinch knot, which is also called the trilene knot. Just saw in a knot book the other day, it's called the double loop, where you put 2 loops through the eye. Now for our tip here in the workshop. I want you to bring with you to the couch, wherever you are, a fishing lure that has a snap swivel or something like that on it that you normally tie, and some of your fishing line from your fishing pole or whatever. Put it through the eye, which is how we normally tie a knot. Now twist around a couple times like this. Is how people tie what is called the clinch knot. Sometimes they go 3 or 4 times around, and then put the line through the loop in the bottom. That's how a clinch knot is tied. And then you snug that down like this. Now, here's the problem with the clinch knot. Now, if you can see that loose end there, see how that pulls? This is what most often happens with a clinch knot. It pulls loose, and you can tell if you think your line broke and the end of your line is all curled like this, you know that the line didn't break. Actually, the knot pulled loose. That's what most frequently happens with a clinch knot. Here's the way to solve that. It's real simple. Instead of going through the eye once, you go through the eye twice, like that. Then what you end up with is a loop on the bottom that has gone through the eye, and I hold it in this hand like that, and here's the main line. Then I wrap it around about 3 or 4 or 5 times. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to take this and put this loose end through both of these loops. Now that's going to pinch down that loose end in 2 loops, not just 1. So now, instead of it pulling out like it would with a clinch knot, watch what happens with this trilene knot. It's pretty tough here. The knot breaks. You can see the knot left on the line right here. That's where it broke, right at the end of the knot. That's what you want to have happen with your knot, to break at the knot. That is the most strength you can get out of a knot. That's called the trilene knot, much better than the clinch knot. You can find the chart for the trilene knot in most any book on fishing knots, or you can find it at the trilene website, which you can get to from our website at fredtrosttv.net. Now, if you're going to know just one fishing knot to tie, the trilene is the one that you should use. At least that's been my experience. Next week I will have a guide's report of fishing conditions. I'm going to touch on some outdoor news. I have a special subject that is really important as we get older. But in the meantime, make sure you have fun outdoors. That's what it's all about. See you next week. Everybody talks about taking a kid fishing. I mean, that's always a good thing to do. But don't forget about the people who are kids at heart. Now, next week, Sunday, June 17th, is Father's Day. Why don't you take your dad fishing, or your father-in-law, or some older fellow who's a kid at heart that doesn't fish as much as he used to? You know, we want to get kids into fishing, but it's important to keep older fellows fishing too. That's the subject on The Practical Sportsman next week. Same time, same station, right here on Public TV.